Hey everyone, today's video is a spring thaw update on the trail we made about 18 months ago, just to see how the bridges are handling a gigantic thaw. Squirrels, I think, are chewing this. That's not flaking away. The squirrels ruining the signs. Okay, this bridge is being successful. It's kind of backed up by a bunch of ice dams, but the water is off it. And as we designed it to be, this area will remain swamp. That's why I left a small barrier here, so we don't just drain the swamp, which would not be beneficial. We just created a trench just under the immediate bridge to keep the bridge area dry. And then it can go down here and be swamp again. It's working out very nicely. And that's all slush down there too. But you see that it's already freezing the surface of it. Tonight's gonna be in single digits again. Whole thing's gonna freeze up. Water in place. Which, because it's gonna freeze in place, there could be a capacity issue. If this freezes in place at the level it is, the next thaw, there's gonna be barely any area and it could go over the bridge. Now let's go downstream a bit to the next, or down trail a bit to the next stream. Okay, we have leaking groundwater here going all across the trail built on the edge of the hill. Now we're getting up to the area which is typically swampy, but it appears no meltwater has gone anywhere near this area yet. This area does flood in the springtime. Normally, this amount of water is no big deal. It's not a lot. But the issue is, we had a sudden warm up with a bunch of rain. The river is still frozen underneath the raging water. If that ice was to melt out of the way, there would be no problem with this amount of water. But you see what the issue is? It's actually starting to freeze up again. It's going over this tiny bridge. It's literally going over the bridge. And you see what it's flowing down to? I'm standing on top of ice. Look at this slush. Look at the amount of slush on top of this bridge. See if look how much we can move out of the way with just my feet. Look how much I just increased the flow by doing so. Now you can see that's a ton of water going over this bridge. I'm going to take an axe and I'm going to try to get some to go underneath. despite it doing this for over a day, still frozen solid underneath. And it's all negative temperature nights in the forecast. This whole bridge is gonna be frozen over until the spring. This whole thing going over, it's gonna flash freeze. Can't do anything about this. Wow. Hey everyone, I know it's been 18 months, but here we are back at this trail we created. The squirrels are chewing these signs like crazy. I'm not sure why. They're the ones ruining that. See how the bridge held up. Still pretty stable. It's doing what it was intended for. Most of the water is following that drainage ditch I made. I made the drainage ditch to dry out the soil where the bridge's supports are so they wouldn't sink. The ground's frozen right now. The drainage ditch is kind of frozen. So if this thing was to thaw, all the rest of this trickle would be able to go down inside there. But it's not going to do any harm. It's temporary. And we left a little buffer right here that keeps the swamp from completely draining out, which wouldn't be too good. Got a ton of water down here too. Good amount of flow on the trail. Looks like the woodpecker might be getting some yummy carpenter ants or some kind of wood-eating larva. That's very fresh. There's lots of nice pooling water alongside the trail also. Keep in mind here that the ground's a little bit squishy, but I can definitely feel only a foot down. It is very hard. The ground is still frozen at this area. These bridges are holding up very nicely. And right here, the bridge is doing its job. It's a good trickle of water here. This trickle is only during the spring thaw when the ground is frozen. It's not porous, so it comes through here. The rest of the year, this is a swamp, but there's no flowing water. Before we rebuilt this trail, it was abandoned for I don't know how long, at least a decade. This is the old boardwalk right here. It looks like pieces of railroad tie. I just used it there to divert the water down there. See, there's a bunch of water trickling down here. Looks like a lot of thawing is happening here. Last week, if you guys saw, this right here was frozen. It was going over the bridge as a result of the river freezing, and then it thawed, the snow thawed, without giving us a chance before it started just flowing over everything. Look at this big piece right here loose.